The massive warship Death's Herald cut through space like a blade through silk. In its command center, General Vexathara stood before a circular table where holograms of her fleet commanders flickered to life. The Third Conquest Fleet spread out behind the flagship like a deadly constellation of metal and firepower. "Brothers and sisters in conquest," Vexathara began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Today we face the humans. These creatures dare to claim an entire sector of space as their own. They send us warnings as if we were common pirates instead of the righteous sword of Valdoria." The holographic commanders nodded their approval. Admiral Korthax of the Heavy Cruiser Squadron spoke first. "General, our intelligence reports suggest the humans have unusual defensive capabilities. Perhaps we should approach with more caution than usual." Vexathara's red eyes blazed with anger. "Caution. We are Valdorian. We crushed the Kelthani resistance when they had 3 times our numbers. We broke the Zelkani fleet when they thought their energy shields made them invincible. What can these humans possibly do that we have not faced before?" Sub-Commander Grixtal appeared in her own hologram, speaking from the bridge of the heavy destroyer Crimson Talon. "General, I have been reviewing our spy reports from human space. There are some concerning details, such as massive energy signatures detected throughout their territory, fleet movements toward their outer colonies, and something else. Our spies report that human civilian populations are not fleeing in panic. Instead, they are moving with organized purpose." Vexathara waved a dismissive hand. "Fear takes many forms, Grixtal. Some species run screaming. Others try to maintain dignity in the face of inevitable defeat. The result is always the same." But Grixtal was not satisfied. "General, there is something else. The other species in the galaxy, even the ones we have conquered, all warn against attacking human space. The Morvac Confederacy lost an entire colony world near the human border. The Zelkani scout fleets that probed human defenses simply vanished. No wreckage, no survivors, no trace." "Exactly!" Vexathara slammed her fist on the table. "They vanished because the humans destroyed them so completely that nothing remained. This proves the humans will fight with desperation, not skill. Desperate. Enemies make mistakes, we will exploit those mistakes." The meeting ended with orders for the fleet to advance at maximum speed toward human space. As the holograms faded, Grixtal remained alone on her bridge, staring at the intelligence reports. Something about this felt wrong, but she could not put her finger on what. Meanwhile, on the human colony world of New Busan, Defense Coordinator He Jin stood in the Planetary Command Center, watching the massive screens that showed evacuation progress. Ships of all sizes lifted off from spaceports across the planet, carrying civilians toward the safer inner colonies. But this evacuation was different from the desperate flights that other species made when facing invasion. The humans moved with calm efficiency, like they had practiced this many times before. Because they had. "Ma'am," her aide reported, "civilian evacuation is ahead of schedule. Transport ships report no panic, no pushing, no fighting for seats. Everyone knows where to go and what to do." He-Jin nodded. "What about the volunteers?" 60% of the adult population has volunteered to stay and fight. We're having to turn people away." This was the part that would have shocked the Valdorians, if they had understood it. When humans faced invasion, they did not just flee or surrender. They chose to fight even when the odds seemed impossible. Not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to protect their homes and families. "Ma'am, I'm getting strange reports from the industrial district," the aide continued. "The factories haven't shut down for evacuation. Instead, they've switched to full war production. The mining equipment manufacturers are now making armor plates. The agricultural machinery plants are producing ammunition. Even the children's toy factories are making military supplies." Hyejin smiled grimly. "Phase 1 is now in effect. Send confirmation to Admiral Kai Jun. Tell him New Busan is ready." "Ready for what?" the aide wanted to ask, but he had learned not to question orders during wartime preparation. He would understand soon enough. In space above the colony, Captain Dongwu commanded the destroyer Resilience as it patrolled the outer system. His ship was alone against the approaching Valdorian fleet, but he showed no signs of fear or desperation. Instead, he seemed almost relaxed as he reviewed tactical data with his crew. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "long-range sensors detect the Valdorian fleet approaching. 200 ships, just as intelligence predicted." "Excellent," Dongwu replied calmly. "Communications, prepare to broadcast on all frequencies when they arrive. And weapons, make sure our special package is ready." The weapons officer grinned. "Package is loaded and ready, sir. The Valdorians are going to get quite a surprise." As the Valdorian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, they found exactly what they expected: a single human destroyer facing impossible odds. To them, it looked like a desperate last stand by a species that knew it was doomed. "General," Vexathara appeared on the bridge of Death's Herald, studying the tactical display. "One ship? This is their great defense, their mighty fleet?" "General," her sensor operator reported, "we're detecting massive civilian ship movements throughout the system. It appears to be a full-scale evacuation. Thousands of ships fleeing toward the galactic core." "Perfect," Vexathara smiled coldly. "They know what's coming. Fear spreads faster than our ships can fly. By the time we reach their core worlds, they will be paralyzed with terror." But if the Valdorians had looked more carefully at those fleeing ships, they would have noticed something odd. The civilian vessels were all heading in the same direction, following precise flight paths, maintaining perfect formation discipline. This was not a panicked evacuation. This was a carefully planned redeployment. Captain Dongwu opened communications with the Valdorian fleet. "Valdorian vessels, this is Captain Dongwu of the Colonial Defense Force destroyer Resilience. You have violated human sovereign space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." On her flagship, Vexathara laughed out loud. "Did you hear that? One ship against our entire fleet, and he demands that we withdraw." She activated her own communications system. "Human Captain, I am General Vexathara, Supreme Commander of the Third Conquest Fleet. You face the might of the Valdorian Empire with a single pathetic vessel. Surrender now, and your death will be swift and honorable." Dongwu's response came back immediately, and something in his voice made several Valdorian officers feel uneasy. "I have a counteroffer, General. You have 10 seconds to begin withdrawal, before I demonstrate why the galaxy has learned to fear human space." 10 seconds? Vexthara's laughter grew louder. What can one ship do in 10 seconds? She was about to find out. Throughout the Valdorian fleet, weapons officers prepared to destroy the lone human vessel. It would be quick and easy, the first of many victories in their conquest of human space. But as the seconds ticked down, Captain Dongwu spoke one word into his communicator: Mjolnir. Suddenly, space around the Valdorian fleet erupted in artificial lightning. What the aliens had thought were ordinary asteroids revealed themselves as massive weapon platforms. Hidden mining stations dropped their camouflage and showed their true nature: orbital defense systems that had been waiting patiently for exactly this moment. Tungsten projectiles launched from railguns at significant fractions of light speed. Each projectile carried the kinetic energy of a nuclear bomb. They tore through Valdorian shields like they were made of paper, punching through armor that had never been breached before. In 30 seconds, 12 Valdorian ships were completely destroyed. 20 more were heavily damaged and drifting helplessly. The remainder of the fleet scattered in panic, their perfect battle formation shattered. Sub-Commander Grixtel stared at her tactical display in horror. "General, how did they hide weapons of this magnitude? Our sensors detected only standard mining equipment." "Impossible," Vexthara snarled, but her voice shook with the first taste of real fear. "No species has weaponry this advanced. These must be experimental prototypes. They cannot have many more." But even as she spoke, more hidden weapons platforms revealed themselves throughout the system. The humans had turned every asteroid, every space station, every piece of orbital infrastructure into a potential weapon. The Valdorians had not just attacked a star system. They had flown into a carefully prepared trap. Captain Dongwu's voice came over the communication channels one more time. "General Vexathara, your fleet has been defeated. Withdraw now, or we will finish what you started." For the first time in her military career, General Vexithara ordered a retreat. As her surviving ships limped away from the system, she realized that the humans had been trying to warn her. They had not been making empty threats, they had been offering mercy. But the Third Conquest Fleet's pride would not let them accept defeat so easily. This was just the first battle. Soon, Vexithara would learn whether human mercy had limits. The massive hologram flickered to life in the center of the Valdorian war room. Admiral Kaijun's scarred face appeared, his dark eyes cold as space itself. The human looked tired, like a man who had seen too many battles. Behind him, other human officers moved quietly around their ship's bridge. General Vexithara stood before the hologram, her tall alien form covered in the black armor that made Valdorian warriors famous across the galaxy. Her 6 arms crossed in a gesture of contempt. Around her, dozens of other Valdorian commanders watched from their seats, their red eyes glowing with anger. "This is Admiral Kaijun of the Human Colonial Defense Force," the hologram spoke. His voice was calm, but something in it made even the bravest Valdorian officers shift uncomfortably. "I am sending this message to General Vexithara and the Valdorian High Command." Vexithara laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the war room. The humans had been sending these warnings for months now. Each time they sounded more desperate. Soon she would show these primitive creatures what real power looked like. "The Sol quarantine zone extends 50 parsecs from Earth in all directions," Kaijun continued. "Any Valdorian vessel that crosses this boundary will be treated as an enemy force. This is your final warning." "Final warning?" Vexithara spoke, to the hologram, though she knew the human could not hear her. "You dare threaten the Valdorian Empire?" The hologram continued as if reading her thoughts. "I know what you're thinking, General. Your empire has conquered 17 star systems. Your biomechanical warriors are feared throughout the galaxy. You believe humans are weak because we only achieved faster than light travel 200 years ago." Several Valdorian officers looked at each other with surprise. How did this human know their thoughts so well? "You are wrong," Kaijun said simply. "Stay away from human space. This is not a request. It is a promise of what will happen if you don't." The hologram disappeared, leaving the war room in silence. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Vexithara's laughter filled the room again, louder this time. "Did you hear that?" she asked her commanders. "These humans think they can threaten us. They have 12 billion people spread across 43 worlds. We have conquered species with populations 10 times larger." Sub-Commander Grixtel, her most trusted officer, stood up slowly. Unlike the others, she did not laugh. "General, perhaps we should consider their warning. The other species in the galaxy all say the same thing about human space." "What do they say?" Vexithara demanded. "They say to stay away. They say humans are different. They say these things because they are cowards." Vexithara slammed her fist on the table. "The galaxy is full of weak species who would rather hide behind warnings than fight. We are Valdorian, we do not hide." Grixtal sat back down, but her expression remained troubled. She had read the reports from other species. The Zelkani had tried to expand into human space 50 years ago. 3 of their scout fleets had simply vanished. The Morvac Confederacy had lost an entire colony world near the human border under mysterious circumstances. Every species that had tested human boundaries had learned to regret it. But Vexithara saw only opportunity. The humans controlled some of the richest star systems in this part of the galaxy. Their worlds were full of valuable resources. Their technology, while primitive in some ways, was surprisingly advanced in others. Most importantly, conquering them would send a message to the entire galaxy. Nowhere was safe from Valdorian power. "Begin mobilization of the Third Conquest Fleet," Vexithara ordered. 200 ships, 50,000 warriors. We will crush these humans and add their worlds to our empire. The commanders began to file out, excited by the prospect of another easy conquest. Only Grixtal remained behind. "General," she said quietly, "I have been studying human military history. They have never lost a defensive war. Every time someone has attacked their space, the attackers have disappeared or retreated in defeat. Vexithara turned to face her second-in-command. And what does that tell you? It tells me that maybe the warnings are real. Maybe we should listen. It tells me that no one has hit them hard enough yet, Vexithara replied. We are not some small raiding force or scout fleet. We are the third conquest fleet of the Valdorian Empire. We have never been defeated. 50 parsecs away on the human monitoring station called Watchtower 7, Commander Boram watched her screens with growing concern. The Valdorian fleet was moving, and its destination was clear. Sir, she spoke into her communicator. This is Watchtower 7 calling Admiral Kai Jun. Priority Alpha transmission. Kai Jun's voice came back immediately. Go ahead, Boram. The Valdorians are mobilizing. 200 ships, heavy configuration. They're not taking our warning seriously. There was a long pause before Kai Jun responded. Fleet composition? Boram checked her readings. Standard Valdorian battle formation. Dreadnoughts, carriers, support vessels. This isn't a scouting force, sir. This is a full invasion fleet. Another pause. Boram had served under Admiral Kai Jun for 5 years. She knew that when he went quiet like this, he was thinking hard about something important. Boram, he said finally, send word to all colonial defense forces. Implement Protocol 77 Alpha immediately. Boram felt a chill run down her spine. Protocol 77 Alpha was the code for total war preparation. It meant that humanity was about to face its greatest test in 2 centuries. Sir, should I also alert the inner colonies? Yes. Tell them the wolves are at the door again. As Boram began sending the coded messages, she thought about her family on New Busan. Her husband Tai-ho worked at the orbital shipyard. Her daughter, Hyejin, was studying at the Colonial University. Soon they would all be part of the war effort, whether they wanted to be or not. But that was the human way. When threatened, every citizen became a soldier. Every factory became a weapons plant. Every world became a fortress. The Valdorians would learn this soon enough. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kai Jun stared at the tactical display showing Valdorian fleet movements. His grandfather had told him stories about the early days when humanity first learned that the galaxy was not a friendly place. Back then, humans had been naive, trusting, unprepared. They had paid for that naivety with blood and lost colonies. Never again, his grandfather had said. Never again would humanity be caught unprepared. Kai Jun activated his personal communicator. This is Admiral Kai Jun to all fleet commanders. The Valdorians have chosen war. Begin Phase 1 deployment. All civilian populations are to be evacuated from border worlds within 72 hours. One by one, his commanders acknowledged the orders. Within hours, the human war machine would begin to move. The Valdorians thought they were attacking a peaceful civilization of farmers and merchants. They would soon learn the truth about humanity. The hologram projector in the war room powered down, but Kai Jun's words echoed in Vexithara's mind. You are wrong, the human had said. Such confidence from such a primitive species. Soon she would show him exactly how wrong humans could be. But deep in space, ancient warning beacons began to activate around the human border. Messages in a dozen alien languages repeated the same warning over and over. Danger, quarantine zone, do not enter human space. This warning is for your own protection. The Valdorians ignored them all. The damaged Valdorian fleet hung in space near the edge of human territory, licking its wounds. General Vexithara stood in the medical bay of Death's Herald, watching her surgeons work on the wounded. 12 ships destroyed, 20 more barely. Able to fly and over 3,000 warriors dead or injured. The humans had hurt them badly. But Vexithara was not ready to give up. She was Valdorian, and Valdorians did not retreat from any fight. Sub-Commander Grixtal, she called as her second-in-command entered the medical bay. Status report. Grixtal's armor was scorched from the battle, and her left arm hung in a medical sling. General, we have completed repairs on most ships. The fleet is operational but at reduced capacity. Perhaps we should consider— No. Vexithara's voice cut through the suggestion like a blade. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We are Valdorian. But General, the humans clearly have more advanced defenses than we expected. Maybe we should call for reinforcements from the first or second fleets. Vexithara turned to face her subordinate, red eyes blazing. And tell them what? That the mighty Third Fleet was defeated by mining equipment and a single destroyer? That we turned and ran from a species that achieved spaceflight 2 centuries ago? Grixtal lowered her head. She understood. In Valdorian culture, admitting defeat was worse than death. Warriors who retreated without victory often faced execution for cowardice. But she also understood that they were facing something they had never encountered before. What are your orders, General? We push deeper into human space. Intelligence reports suggest their main fleet is gathering near Earth for a final stand. We will crush them there and burn their homeworld. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who resist Valdorian power. But the intelligence reports were wrong. Admiral Kai-Jun had no intention of fighting the final battle near Earth. Instead, he was preparing a trap that would make the mining station ambush look like a minor skirmish. On the human agricultural world of New Sol, the evacuation was nearly complete. Unlike the panicked flights that other species made when facing invasion, the human evacuation looked almost like a carefully planned military exercise. Families said goodbye to each other calmly. Some boarded transport ships heading to the safer inner colonies. Others reported to militia stations to help defend their world. Lieutenant Tejo stood in the hidden observation post built into the mountains overlooking the main spaceport. Through his binoculars, he watched the last civilian transports lift off into the cloudy sky. Soon, New Sol would be empty except for the volunteers who had chosen to stay and fight. Sir, his communication officer reported, Admiral Kai-Jun is requesting a status update. Tejo activated his communicator. Admiral, this is Lieutenant Tejo at Observation Post 7. Civilian evacuation is complete. All non-essential personnel have been evacuated to safe distance. The volunteers are in position. Good work, Lieutenant. The Valdorian fleet is approaching the Janus Nebula as predicted. Are you ready for Phase 2? Tejo looked at his team of 20 volunteers, all of them local farmers and factory workers who had trained for this moment their entire lives. We're ready, sir. New Sol will do its part. The Janus Nebula was a dense field of ionized gas that stretched across several light-years of space. To most species, it looked like a natural phenomenon that interfered with sensors and communications. Perfect cover for an ambush, the Valdorians thought as they approached. General Vexithara stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the tactical display. The nebula will hide our approach. We can strike at the human fleet while their sensors are blinded. General, her sensor operator reported, we're detecting some unusual energy readings from within the nebula. It might be the human fleet trying to hide. Perfect. They think they can ambush us, but we will turn their trap against them. All ships prepare for battle as we enter the nebula. The Valdorian fleet advanced confidently into the Janus Nebula. What they found inside changed everything they thought they knew about warfare. The nebula was not natural. It was not even really a nebula. Instead, it was humanity's greatest military engineering project, 60 years in the making. What the Valdorians thought was ionized gas was actually a vast network of artificial clouds, cloaked platforms, and hidden weapon systems. Admiral Kai-Jun sat on the bridge of his flagship Indomitable, watching the tactical display as the Valdorian fleet moved deeper into his trap. Around him, his officers worked quietly and efficiently, preparing for the moment they had trained for their entire careers. Admiral, Captain Min Seo reported from the tactical station, all Valdorian ships are now within the engagement zone. Platforms Alpha through Zulu are reporting ready status. Kai-Jun nodded slowly. Signal all stations. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. Throughout the Janus Nebula, the greatest military trap in human history sprang closed. What the Valdorians had thought was empty space revealed itself to be a three-dimensional killing field. Thousands of hidden platforms emerged from stealth mode simultaneously. Laser batteries that had been disguised as space debris opened fire. Missile launchers built into artificial asteroids released their deadly cargo. Kinetic weapons that had been hidden for decades revealed themselves and began their devastating work. The space around the Valdorian fleet transformed into a sphere of destruction. Every direction led to more weapons, more platforms, more death. The aliens found themselves trapped in a battle they could not win, against an enemy they could not see in a place that had been designed specifically to destroy them. General Vexithera watched in growing horror as her fleet died around her. This is impossible. How long have they been building this trap? Her communications officer, his voice shaking with fear, provided the answer that would haunt her dreams. General, our sensors are detecting construction signatures throughout the nebula. Some of these platforms have been here for 60 years. They've been preparing for this battle since before we even knew humans existed. 60 years? Vexithara stared at the tactical display showing her ships being systematically destroyed. They've been planning this for 60 years? Sub-Commander Grixtal, fighting to keep her own ship alive, spoke over the communication channel. General, this is not just a military trap. This is a monument to human patience. They saw us coming decades ago and prepared for this exact moment. The battle, if it could be called a battle, lasted less than an hour. When the weapons finally stopped firing, only 40 Valdorian ships remained out of the original 200. The Third Conquest Fleet, pride of the Valdorian Empire, had been reduced to a broken remnant. In the silence that followed, Admiral Kaijun's voice came over the communication channels. General Vexithara, this is Admiral Kaijun. Your fleet has been defeated. Will you accept terms for the surrender of your remaining ships? Vexithara stared at the communication panel, her pride warring with the reality of her situation. Half her fleet was gone. Her remaining ships were damaged and outnumbered by hidden human platforms. Her warriors were demoralized and frightened, but she was still Valdorian. What terms? She asked finally. Unconditional surrender. Your weapons will be secured, your ships will be escorted to a neutral zone, and you will withdraw from human space permanently. In exchange, we will provide medical aid to your wounded and safe passage home. It was more generous than any terms the Valdorians had ever offered to their own defeated enemies. But Vexthara's pride would not let her accept so easily. And if I refuse? Kaijun's response was immediate and cold. Then we will finish what you started, General. Your choice. For the first time in her military career, General Vexithara was facing an enemy that was not only stronger than her forces, but also more patient, more prepared, and more merciful than she had ever been. The humans had tried to warn her away. They had offered her a chance to avoid this battle entirely. Now they were offering her a chance to save the lives of her remaining warriors. But accepting their mercy would mean admitting that the mighty Valdorian Empire had been defeated by a species they had considered primitive and weak. The decision would define not just her own fate, but the future of her entire civilization. And deep in her heart, she was beginning to understand that the warnings about human space had not been lies or cowardice. They had been acts of kindness, from species that had learned the hard way what happened when you underestimated humanity's capacity for both patience and violence. General Vexithara's pride burned hotter than the fires that had consumed her ships. Standing on the bridge of her damaged flagship, she stared at the communication panel where Admiral Kaijun's offer of surrender terms still glowed. Around her, the bridge crew waited for her decision, their red eyes reflecting fear and uncertainty. General, Sub-Commander Grixtal's voice came through the communication system from her own heavily damaged ship. Perhaps we should consider the human terms. We have lost more than half our fleet. Our remaining ships are badly damaged. Maybe it is time to— No. Vexithara's voice cut through the suggestion like a blade through flesh. We are Valdorian. We do not surrender to primitives, no matter how clever their traps. We will continue this fight. Grixtal's image appeared on the holographic display, her armor scorched and her face bloodied from the battle. General, what can we possibly accomplish? The humans have shown us that they can destroy our ships at will. They control the battlefield completely. They control this battlefield, Vexithara corrected. But not all battlefields. Intelligence, Reports suggest that their main fleet is gathering near Earth for a final desperate stand. We will attack their homeworld directly. Even if we cannot win, we will make them pay such a price that the galaxy will remember Valdorian courage. It was a decision born of pride rather than strategy, but it was very much in character for the Valdorian military philosophy. When faced with defeat, attack harder. When outnumbered, seek the most important target. When dying, make sure the enemy remembers your name. But Admiral Kaijun had no intention of fighting near Earth. The human homeworld was far too precious to risk in battle, even if humanity could win. Instead, he had prepared a trap so deep and so complex that the Valdorians would never escape it. Admiral, Captain Minseo reported from her position at the tactical station. The remaining Valdorian ships are moving toward the inner colonies. Their course suggests they're heading for Earth. Kaijun nodded calmly. As expected, they're following the pattern we predicted. Signal all units to proceed to Phase 3 positions. Dr. Yeon, the fleet's chief intelligence analyst, looked up from her data screens. Admiral, are you sure this will work? The Valdorians are desperate now. Desperate enemies can be unpredictable. Doctor, we have been studying Valdorian psychology for 30 years. They are not unpredictable. They are proud. Pride makes them predictable. Kaijun activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Kaijun. The Valdorians have rejected surrender and are advancing toward the core worlds. Phase 3 is now in effect. Throughout human space, the greatest deception in military history began to unfold. What appeared to be a desperate gathering of human forces near Earth was actually an elaborate theater performance designed to draw the Valdorians into their final trap. The remaining Valdorian ships, 140 vessels carrying the survivors of what had once been a proud conquest fleet, limped through space toward the human core worlds. As they traveled, they intercepted human communications that seemed to confirm their intelligence reports. Emergency broadcast to all colonial defense forces, came one transmission. All available ships report to Earth orbit immediately. This is not a drill. The Valdorians are approaching the homeworld. Civilian evacuation of Luna colony proceeding faster than expected, came another. But we need more time. The fleet must hold them off. General Vexathara listened to these intercepted messages with growing satisfaction. You see? They are panicking. Their careful plans are falling apart. When we appear at Earth, they will be forced to fight us in open space, where their tricks and traps cannot help them. But Sub-Commander Grixtal was not convinced. General, something about this feels wrong. The humans we have fought so far have been calm, prepared, organized. These messages sound like panic, but what if they are meant to sound that way? You worry too much, Grixtal. Fear makes even the most organized enemy make mistakes. The humans are no different from any other species when facing the prospect of their homeworld burning. As the Valdorian fleet approached the solar system, they detected exactly what their intelligence had predicted: massive concentrations of human ships gathering near Earth. It looked like humanity was preparing for one final, desperate battle to protect their homeworld. What the Valdorians could not detect were the thousands of human ships that were not gathering near Earth. These vessels were positioned throughout the solar system, hidden behind planets and asteroids, powered down and running silent. They were waiting. Lieutenant Tejo monitored the approaching Valdorian fleet from his observation post on New Sol. The agricultural world appeared to be abandoned, just another casualty of the human retreat toward Earth. But appearances could be deceiving. Tejo, came Admiral Kaijun's voice over the secure communication channel. The Valdorians are entering the solar system now. Are your people ready? Tejo looked around at his team of volunteers, farmers, and factory workers who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. We're ready, Admiral. New Sol will do its part in the trap. Good. Remember, timing is everything. Wait for my signal, then show them what human agricultural worlds can really do. The Valdorian fleet entered the solar system with confident aggression, expecting to find a desperate enemy making a last stand. Instead, they found something that defied all their expectations and understanding of warfare. The space around Earth did contain human ships, but not nearly as many as the intercepted communications had suggested. More importantly, the human fleet was not positioned defensively around their homeworld. Instead, it was spread out in a loose formation that seemed almost casual. "General," the sensor operator reported with confusion, "the human fleet is not in defensive formation. They appear to be waiting for something." Vexithera studied the tactical display with growing unease. This was not how desperate defenders were supposed to behave. Where was the panic? Where were the frantic preparations? Where was the fear? "General," came another report, "we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the solar system, not just around Earth but around every planet, every asteroid belt, every significant body in the system." The truth began to dawn on General Vexithera with the slow, terrible certainty of inevitable defeat. The humans had not been retreating toward Earth in panic. They had been drawing the Valdorian fleet into the largest trap in the history of warfare. Zonro. Entire solar system was a weapon. Admiral Kai Jun's voice came over the communication channels, calm and professional. "General Vexithera, this is your final opportunity to surrender. You are now completely surrounded. Every planet in this system has been fortified. Every asteroid has been weaponized. Every piece of space debris is potentially a hidden platform." "Impossible," Vexithera whispered, but her voice carried no conviction. "You wanted to attack our homeworld," Kai Jun continued, "so we invited you to try. This entire system has been prepared for 60 years to defend Earth. You are not facing a fleet, General. You are facing the combined military power of human civilization." Sub-Commander Grixtal's voice came over the communication channel, trembling with awe and terror. "General, our sensors are detecting weapons platforms built into the moons of Jupiter. Saturn's rings contain thousands of hidden missile launchers. Even the asteroid belt has been turned into a defensive network." The scope of human preparation was beyond anything the Valdorians had imagined possible. This was not just military engineering. This was an entire star system transformed into a fortress over the course of decades. "How?" Vexithera asked, though she was not sure if she was speaking to the humans or to herself. "How is this possible?" Admiral Kai Jun's answer came back immediately. "Because we learned from history, General. Every species that has survived contact with aggressive neighbors has done so by being prepared. We chose to be very, very prepared." The trap was complete. The Valdorian fleet hung in space, surrounded on all sides by enough firepower to destroy 100 invasion fleets. They could not advance without being annihilated. They could not retreat without running into more weapons. They could not hide because every piece of cover in the system was potentially hostile. For the first time in her military career, General Vexithera understood what it meant to be completely, utterly defeated by an enemy who had planned for this moment longer than she had been alive. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "The same thing we wanted when we sent you the first warning," Admiral Kai Jun replied. "For you to leave human space and never come back." The holographic meeting room aboard Admiral Kai Jun's flagship Indomitable flickered to life with an image that would have seemed impossible just hours before. General Vexithera, Supreme Commander of the Valdorian Third Fleet, stood facing her, human counterpart in what could only be called a surrender negotiation. But this was not the broken, defeated enemy that most species became after such a crushing defeat. Vexithera stood tall despite her damaged armor and bloodied face. Her red eyes still burned with the fire of a warrior, even though that fire was now mixed with something new. Respect. "You have fought well, humans," Vexithera said, her voice carrying a grudging admiration. "I have conquered 17 star systems in my career. I have faced enemies with superior numbers, superior technology, even superior tactics, but I have never faced an enemy like you." Admiral Kai Jun stood across from her, his scarred face calm and professional. Around him, the bridge of the Indomitable hummed with quiet efficiency. Officers moved with the practiced ease of people who had trained for this moment their entire careers. "Thank you, General," Kai Jun replied. "But I suspect you still do not understand what you have truly encountered here. Then explain it to me." Kaijun gestured to the tactical display that dominated the center of the meeting room. The holographic star map showed the galaxy with human, space marked in blue and Valdorian territory in red. General, tell me what you see when you look at this map. Vexathara studied the display. I see human space. 43 worlds, 12 billion people. A small but apparently well-defended territory. And what do you see in Valdorian space? I see the greatest empire in this sector of the galaxy. 60 worlds, over 200 billion citizens, the most advanced military force known to any species. Dr. Yeyun, the fleet's chief intelligence analyst, stepped forward. Her appearance was deceptive. She looked like a university professor, not a military officer. But her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty when she spoke. General, may I ask you a question? In your 30 years of conquest, what is the one thing that every species you defeated had in common? Vexathara considered the question carefully. It was not what she had expected from a surrender negotiation. They were unprepared. They trusted in the goodwill of their neighbors, in treaties, in the belief that surely no civilized species would attack without provocation. Exactly, Dr. Yeun nodded. They were unprepared because they did not believe that war would come to them. They thought they could avoid conflict through diplomacy, through distance, through wishful thinking. Captain Min Seo, the tactical officer, activated another section of the holographic display. Humans are different, General. We have studied your empire's expansion for 30 years. We analyzed your tactics, your technology, your psychology. We knew that eventually you would turn your attention to human space. Vexathara felt a chill run through her body. You have been watching us for 30 years? Since the day you conquered your third star system, Admiral Kaijun confirmed. We study every aggressive species in the galaxy. We learn their patterns. We prepare for the day they decide we look like easy prey. The tactical display shifted to show a timeline of Valdorian expansion over 3 decades. Every conquest was marked, every battle analyzed, every tactical development catalogued. The depth of human intelligence gathering was staggering. This is impossible, Vexathara said, though her voice lacked conviction. No species has this level of organization, this level of patience. General, Dr. Yeyun said gently. What? Do you know about human history before we achieved spaceflight? Very little. Our intelligence focuses on military capabilities, not ancient history. Then let me educate you. For most of our history, humans lived on one world and fought each other constantly. We had global wars that killed hundreds of millions of people. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came very close to making ourselves extinct several times. Captain Min Seo continued the explanation. But we learned from those experiences. We learned that the best way to survive is not to be the strongest or the most aggressive. It is to be the most prepared. The holographic display changed again, showing the human worlds in detail. But now Vexathara could see what she had missed. Before, every world was not just defended, it was a fortress. Every space station was not just a civilian facility, it was a weapons platform. Every asteroid mining operation was not just about resources, it was about strategic positioning. You have turned your entire civilization into a military machine, Vexathara said in awe. No, Admiral Kaijun corrected her firmly. We have turned our entire civilization into a defensive machine. There is a difference, and that difference is crucial to understanding us. Commander Su Jin, who had joined the meeting from the garrison on New Seoul, spoke up from her own holographic projection. General, in the past week you have attacked 3 human worlds and destroyed dozens of our ships. You have killed thousands of our people. Do you know what we have not done in response? Vexathara thought carefully. You have not counterattacked our worlds. You have not targeted our civilians. You have not even tried to destroy our fleet completely when you had the opportunity. Exactly. We fight only to defend ourselves. We do not conquer. We do not expand through force. We do not seek glory through the suffering of others. But we make absolutely certain that no one can conquer us. The truth of human nature was finally becoming clear to General Vexathara. This was not a species like the Valdorians, seeking to expand their territory through military might. This was a species that had learned the hard way that the galaxy was a dangerous place, and had chosen to prepare for every possible threat. The warnings, she said suddenly. The other species in the galaxy. They were not afraid of human military power. They were trying to protect us from our own stupidity. Dr. Yeun nodded sadly. The galaxy is full of species that have learned what happens when you attack humanity and lose. They tried to warn you because they did not want you to suffer the same fate. What fate? Vex Thara asked, though she was beginning to suspect the answer. Admiral Kai Jun activated another section of the holographic display. This one showed the historical boundaries of various galactic empires over the past 2 centuries. General, do you recognize the territory that used to belong to the Kelthani Empire? Vexithara studied the display. The Kelthani had once controlled over 80 star systems, making them one of the largest empires in the galaxy. But their territory on the current map was much smaller. Only a handful of worlds, isolated and weak. What happened to them? They made the same mistake you did. They attacked human space with a massive invasion fleet, confident in their superiority over what they saw as a primitive species. We destroyed their fleet completely. But that was just the beginning. Captain Minseo continued the explanation. After we defeated their invasion, something interesting happened. The Kelthani Empire had many enemies, species they had conquered, worlds they had oppressed, neighbors they had threatened. When news spread that the mighty Kelthani fleet had been destroyed by humans, all of those enemies suddenly found the courage to fight back. The Kelthani had built their empire on fear, Dr. Yeun added. Once that fear was broken, once other species saw that the Kelthani could be defeated, their empire began to collapse. It took 50 years, but eventually they lost almost everything they had conquered. Vexithara stared at the display in growing horror. The pattern was clear. The same thing could happen to the Valdorian Empire. If word spread that the Third Fleet had been defeated by humans, their own enemies might see it as a sign of weakness. Rebellions might break out. Neighboring empires might attack. Everything her people had built could be destroyed. "This is your real weapon, isn't it?" she said quietly. "Not the hidden platforms or the system-wide defenses. Your real weapon is making your enemies destroy themselves through their own pride." Admiral Kai Jun's expression softened slightly. "General, we did not want to fight you at all. We sent you warnings, we gave you opportunities to avoid this conflict. We tried to save you from your own pride. And now? Now you have a choice. You can continue this war, in which case the remaining Valdorian ships will be completely destroyed, and news of your defeat will spread throughout the galaxy. Your enemies will see weakness. Your subjects will question your invincibility. Your empire will face the same fate as the Kelthani." Vexithara felt the weight of her civilization's future pressing down on her shoulders. Or you withdraw, now. Return to Valdorian space. Tell your people that human space is too well defended to be worth the cost of conquest. Save face. Keep your empire intact. Live to fight another day against enemies who are not prepared as we are. It was a choice between certain destruction and managed defeat. Between the complete annihilation of everything she had worked for, and the chance to preserve her people's future by swallowing her pride. For the first time in her life, General Vexithara truly understood why the galaxy had learned to fear and respect human space. The silence in the holographic meeting room stretched for what felt like an eternity. General Vexithara stood motionless, her red eyes fixed on the tactical display that showed the collapsed territories of the once mighty Kelthani Empire. Around her, the ghosts of 200 years of galactic history whispered warnings that she had been too proud to hear. Finally, she spoke. "You could have destroyed us completely when we first entered your space. Why did you offer terms?" Commander Su Jin, still appearing as a hologram from her garrison on New Sol, answered with quiet conviction. "Because we are not you, General. We do not glorify war. We do not seek conquest for its own sake. We are just very, very good at defending ourselves when we have no choice." Admiral Kai Jun stepped closer to the holographic display. General, may I show you something that our intelligence services discovered about your empire? Without waiting for an answer, he activated a new section of the display. This one showed detailed information about Valdorian society, population centers, industrial capacity, civilian infrastructure. But what caught Vexthara's attention were the highlighted sections showing resistance movements, oppressed populations, and barely controlled rebellions throughout Valdorian space. Your empire is not as stable as you believe, Dr. Ye-Yun said, gently. Our analysis suggests that at least 12 of your conquered worlds have active resistance movements. 6 more are showing signs of potential rebellion. Your military is stretched thin, maintaining control over territories that do not want to be part of your empire. Vexthara stared at the intelligence data in shock. How do you know this? Because we make it our business to understand potential threats, Admiral Kaijun replied. And because we have been contacted by some of those resistance movements, asking for our help. Help that we have refused to provide, Captain Minseo added quickly. We do not interfere in the internal affairs of other species, but we do monitor situations that might affect galactic stability. The implications were staggering. If the humans were correct, the Valdorian Empire was a house of cards held together by military force and the fear of consequences. The defeat of the Third Fleet could be the catalyst that brought it all crashing down. Lieutenant Tejo's voice came over the communication system from his observation post. Admiral, I'm detecting massive fleet movements throughout Valdorian space. Multiple species are mobilizing their forces. Word of this battle is spreading faster than we expected. Vexthara felt her blood turn to ice. Who is mobilizing? Their Thrakari Confederacy is moving 3 fleets toward your border worlds, Dr. Ye-Yun reported, consulting her intelligence data. The Zelkani Republic has activated their entire navy. Even the remnants of the Kelthani Empire are showing unusual military activity. They smell blood in the water, Admiral Kaijun said sadly. Your enemies are interpreting your defeat here as a sign that the Valdorian military can be beaten. They are preparing to settle old scores. General Vexthara looked around the room at the human officers, seeing them clearly for the first time. These were not the primitive barbarians she had expected to crush. These were professional soldiers who understood warfare at a level that transcended mere tactics and technology. They understood the psychology of power, the dynamics of empire, the delicate balance that kept galactic civilization from collapsing into chaos. What do you recommend? She asked finally. Admiral Kaijun's response was immediate. Return to Valdorian space immediately. Tell your government that human space is defended by advanced technology and extensive fortifications that make conquest impossible. Emphasize the cost rather than the defeat. Make it sound like a strategic decision rather than a military failure. And then prepare to defend your own territory from enemies who think you have been weakened. Show them that the Valdorian military is still strong enough to protect what it already holds. Focus on defense rather than expansion. Commander Sujin leaned forward in her holographic projection. General, there is something else you need to understand. The humans you have fought today, we are not representative of our entire species. We are the Colonial Defense Force. We are specifically trained and equipped to fight defensive wars against aggressive neighbors. What does that mean? It means that if you had actually succeeded in conquering human space, if you had burned our worlds and enslaved our people, you would have faced something far worse than us. You would have faced the human military units that specialize in offensive operations. Dr. Ye-Yun activated another section of the holographic display. This one showed ship designs and weapon systems that were clearly more advanced than anything the Valdorians had encountered in their battles with the Colonial Defense Force. These are the units that handled the final pacification of the Kelthani Empire, she explained quietly. They have never been deployed outside human space, but they exist. They are the reason that no species has ever successfully occupied a human world for more than a few weeks. The message was clear. The humans had defeated the Valdorian invasion, using only their defensive forces. Their offensive capabilities remained hidden, held in reserve for enemies who crossed certain lines that the Valdorians had never approached. You have been merciful beyond anything I would have expected, Vexthara said slowly. Why? Because mercy is often more effective than violence, Admiral Kaijun replied. A defeated enemy who survives can learn from their mistakes. A destroyed enemy teaches lessons only to others. Lieutenant Tejo's voice came over the communication system again. Admiral, the Valdorian government is requesting immediate contact with General Vexthara. They want a full report on the military situation. This was the moment of truth. General Vexthara could tell her government the complete truth about human defensive capabilities, which would likely result in her execution for incompetence and failure. Or she could follow the humans' advice and frame the retreat as a strategic decision based on the high cost of conquest. General, Sub-Commander Grixtel's voice came from her own ship. What are your orders? Vexthara looked around the room one more time, taking in the faces of the humans who had defeated her so completely and yet treated her with such unexpected respect. We are withdrawing from human space immediately. All ships are to return to Valdorian territory at best possible speed. And the government? What do we tell them? We tell them the truth. Human space is defended by technology and fortifications that make conquest impossible at acceptable cost. We recommend that the Empire focus on consolidating existing territory, rather than expanding into areas where the defenders have such significant advantages. It was not a complete lie, but it was not the complete truth either. It was a diplomatic fiction that would allow the Valdorian Empire to survive with its pride somewhat intact, while avoiding the complete catastrophe that would follow from admitting total defeat. Admiral Kaijun nodded his approval. General, there is one more thing. We will be monitoring Valdorian space for the next several months. If your enemies attack while you are weakened by losses from this campaign, we will provide intelligence support to help you defend your territory. Vexthara stared at him in shock. You would help us? After we invaded your space? We would help you defend your existing territory, Commander Sujin clarified. We will not help you conquer new worlds, but we have no interest in seeing the Valdorian Empire collapse completely. That would create a power vacuum that could destabilize the entire sector. Besides, Dr. Yeyun added with a slight smile, a Valdorian Empire that has learned to respect human space is infinitely preferable to whatever aggressive species might replace you if your government falls. The holographic meeting began to break up as the various participants prepared to return to their duties. But before the connection ended, General Vexthara spoke one more time. Admiral Kaijun, I have one final question. What would have happened if we had ignored your warnings but approached your space peacefully? If we had asked for trade agreements or diplomatic relations instead of bringing an invasion fleet? Admiral Kaijun's scarred face broke into the first genuine smile she had seen from him. Then you would have found us to be the most peaceful, generous, and cooperative neighbors you could possibly imagine. We have no quarrel with any species that approaches us in friendship. As the holographic projections faded and the Valdorian fleet began its long journey home, General Vexthara reflected on the hardest lesson of her military career. The humans had not defeated her through superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They had defeated her by understanding her better than she understood herself. They had known that pride would drive her to attack despite the warnings. They had known that she would interpret their peaceful nature as weakness. They had known that she would not believe their defensive capabilities until she experienced them firsthand. Most importantly, they had known that completely destroying her fleet would create more problems than it solved. By offering mercy and helping her save face, they had turned a potential enemy into a species that would never again test human boundaries. 6 months later, Sub-Commander Grixtel, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the Valdorian military, received a data packet from human space. It contained detailed specifications for advanced medical technology and a simple message.